Hi guys, I'm Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. Now, there's a lot of searches I've noticed on the internet for best beginner violin lessons. So I thought today I would just do a quick video on what I believe is the best way to get the best beginner violin lessons. So if you know anything about me, you know that I played professionally for many years and I taught for many years, and I also have two daughters that became musicians as well. In fact, you've probably seen one of my daughters play on this channel from time to time. So I've got quite a bit of experience in seeing what works and what doesn't in finding the best beginner violin lessons. And I think this video will apply to you if you're an adult beginner as well. So what should you be looking for with the best beginner violin teacher? Well, there's two primary things that you should be looking for. And this applies to online lessons as well, because online lessons are a lot more popular these days. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget to subscribe and hit that little alert bell if you like the content in these videos. I'm going to keep on making a lot of content, so just subscribe so you don't miss anything. So number one is their professional playing experience. So the primary question is, have they played professionally? Are other people prepared to pay them for their playing ability? So you have to ask yourself, if nobody is willing to pay them for their playing ability, well, why should you? This might be a big red flag. So there's two ways in which teachers are usually paid to play, right? And remember, this could be past performance experience or current performance experience. So the question is, have they played in a professional orchestra? Or maybe there's another kind of professional group that they've played in. Maybe it's not even classically music related. It could be some other kind of genre. But the question is, again, have they played professionally in any of these types of groups in the past, or do they currently? So the second category would be like gigs, right? Are they a gigger? Do they have a chamber group and they play parties or, birthday parties or weddings or something like that? So they have an established group and they go around and they play somewhere. Now, this perhaps might not be as big a contributor to a successful, professional career, but at least people are paying them to play somewhere. But it all goes back to the same question. Are people willing to pay them for how they play? There's many people who are in volunteer groups. But again, if you're in a volunteer group and you've never played professionally, well, that might say something about whether people are willing to pay you for your ability or not. Okay, the second factor that you want to look at, and it's probably the most important, and it's probably the easiest to determine if somebody can teach or not, and that is the quality of their students. Now, if they have quality students, well, they probably play in a youth orchestra of some kind, or they participate in competitions. Now, to get into a youth orchestra, you have to demonstrate a certain level of competence on your instrument. To win a competition or to place in a competition in some way, you also have to demonstrate an acceptable level of competence with your instrument. Any teacher that's worth being paid will probably have students that are in a youth orchestra or they participate in competitions of some kind. If they're a horrible teacher, well, their students won't be able to participate in a youth orchestra. They won't be able to place in any kind of competition of any kind because they don't demonstrate the acceptable level of playing. So that's probably not a teacher that you want to hire. So now that you know the metrics that you want to use in order to determine if a teacher is a good teacher or not, well, now the question is, how do I find a good teacher? Well, there's three primary ways that you can find these great teachers. Okay, so number one, just call up your local violin shops or Google private instructors and look at their reviews. So you just call a violin shop, you ask for the teacher's bios. If the bios don't contain all the information you're looking for, just simply ask. Be straightforward and ask questions regarding those two metrics that I just gave you. And of course, you can call the teachers with a Google search and you'll come up with the same information. Now, number two, you can look up the participants in the competitions in your area. So even if you don't live in a densely populated area, almost every area has some kind of violin competitions available to it, right? And usually there's at least some kind of ASTA competition, which is the American String Teachers Association, ASTA. And they usually have some kinds of competitions, state competitions, district competitions, something like that. So you can go to their websites, and often not only will they list the participants and how they placed, but they will also list who their violin teachers were. So all you have to do is just kind of look for patterns, right? Now, if you live in a heavily populated area, well, there's probably a lot of different competitions available, especially if you're like California or New York or something like that. There's a lot of different competitions, and you can actually look online. You can see where the students placed, you can see who their teachers were, and you just look for patterns. You could look at last season and see, oh, I see this teacher shows up a lot. So you can pick like the top 3 teachers that you see pretty consistently. Now, they don't have to win all the time. You know, maybe you're not that serious about violin, but if you see the same teacher's name kind of popping up continuously, then you know, okay, they're pretty consistent. You know, they want their students to do well. They're going to competitions. They're placing in some way. So that means that teacher is doing something right. Now, the third thing that you can do is just contact your local youth orchestra. More than likely, there's some kind of local youth orchestra in your area. Usually, if you contact these orchestras, you probably can't email them. They probably won't answer you in my experience. You probably just have to call them on the phone. But you call them up and say, hey, do you have a list of teachers, you know, the violin teachers who, you know, teach the kids in your orchestra? And they'll say, yeah, sure. Now, if you get the list, I mean, you're not going to know, you know, who's better or who's worse, but at least you're going to have a good starting place. So you can just do a little bit of research on the violin teachers and you can make some phone calls. Yes, it takes a little bit of digging, but trust me, it's worth it. So in conclusion, paying a bunch of money, spending a bunch of time for a teacher who doesn't know what they're doing, they don't teach proper technique, and they don't know how to communicate concepts well to you or your child, is a complete waste of time. So you might as well just spend a little bit of time to start off right. That way you can see what your full potential is. And you know, if you come across a teacher who has a large studio and they're well known, it doesn't mean they're a good teacher. You know, I've known teachers who have large studios and I've gone to their recitals just to check out the quality of the students. And the students, in one particular situation that I can think of, were just abysmal. Really lovely kids. Some of them clearly worked really hard, but they were just banging their head against a brick wall. They were not going to go anywhere because they all were taught the same really, really bad techniques and habits. And the pity was that the parents had no idea. They would just sit there at the recitals, clap like seals, and be really proud of their kids. But their kids weren't going anywhere, and their kids weren't reaching their full potential. So if those parents just paid attention to the 2 criteria that I gave you in these videos, that never would have happened, and they would have started their kids off well and found out what their kids' true potential was as musicians. So guys, I hope this video helped today. And as I always say at the end of all my videos, you know, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, just contact me at Kennedy Violins. You know, we're always happy to answer any kind of questions that you guys have. With that, I'll bid you adieu and you have a great day.